Hello and welcome to the fourth video of Section 7. In this video we're going to create our final desktop pool, a manual desktop pool. So in this video we're going to create a desktop pool which will use an already existing Windows 7 virtual machine. This pool will also have a persistent assignment, meaning that a user will effectively own this desktop. So let's now create our final desktop pool, the manual pool. So we've logged on to our Horizon View Administrator screen, as you can see here. So we're going to click to expand Catalogue, and again desktop pools, and we can see here our three previous desktop pools. Just the reason why these have got a cross next to them is because we haven't entitled any end users yet, so it's just warning us that we've not completed that task yet. So we're going to click Add for a final time, and now we're going to see the Add Desktop Pool configuration screen and the desktop pool type. And in this case, it's going to be a manual desktop pool. So I'm going to click Next to continue. And now for the user assignment. So is this going to be dedicated? Is the user going to own the desktop? Or is it going to be floating? So we're going to say the end user is going to be dedicated to this desktop. So manual desktop pool, they're going to be pointing to one particular machine. So we click Next to continue. And now we need to select the machine source. So is it a vCenter virtual machine? Or is it something else? Is it a physical computer? So a physical computer could be running the Horizon agent, which would allow us to connect to it. Or it may be a VM that's not managed by vCenter, for example. As long as it's got the Horizon agent, again, we can connect to it. So in our example, it's actually a vCenter virtual machine. So we're going to click Next to continue. And then we need to select which vCenter. So where is this machine located? Which vCenter server is it physically located on? So it's on our VCS2, so we select that, Next to continue. Then as before, we need to give it a desktop pool identification. So we're going to call this Win7-manual, and then we can give it a name, Windows 7 manual. So that's the display name that the end users will see. We could create an access group to help management be more easy, or give it an optional description. So we click Next to continue. So now we see our desktop pool settings. So is this going to be an enabled pool or a disabled pool? So can users access it or can't they? Make sure this is enabled. Connection server restrictions. So we can add a tag to our connection server so that this desktop pool and these desktops can only be accessed from a particular connection server. That connection server being the one with the tag that matches. So we could click the radio button and then select the connection server with the correct tag. And a category folder. So we could add a folder and a shortcut onto the desktop. Goes directly to the desktop pool. So we could select that, category folder. We could type a new folder name and we could add that as a folder. We could add a shortcut to the start menu or the launcher and or the desktop. So we're just going to leave that disabled on the example lab. And now we have our remote power settings. So remote power policy, so we don't take no power action. We can ensure that machines are always powered on. We can suspend or we can power off. What to do when a user disconnects. So do we want to automatically log them off when they disconnect? We can say never. Do we want to automatically log them off after a particular time, or do we want to do it immediately? So the thing to watch out with this particular setting is if there was a network glitch, for example, where the network just dropped out briefly for a few seconds. If we selected that to say immediately, View would spot that they disconnected. The policy says log them off. That's exactly what will happen. So they'll be logged off. So 10 seconds later, the network comes back up. The end user's logged off and disconnected. So that means they have to log back in. They have to have a new desktop built potentially. And it's just would take a little bit of time, put some more load on your infrastructure when it was just a 10-second network dropout. So just watch out when you configure that particular setting. Do we want users to restart or reset their machines? That's a simple yes or no. And then on to the display protocol. So which one are we going to use? We're going to use BLAST, RDP or PC over IP. We can choose. Allow users to choose the protocol, yes or no. So some use cases, maybe PC over IP, end user is running externally, they're in a cafe of some description, and a particular network port was blocked, say UDP port 4172, the port used by PC over IP. They would be able to go through the logon process. That would all look and feel exactly normal, but they would be having a black screen returned to them. The reason they see a black screen is because the pixels from the desktop are being blocked on the way out, so they won't be able to use their desktop. So in that case, then allow them to change the protocol. They can then try BLAST, they could try RDP, and hopefully that doesn't get blocked and they can use their desktop. 3D renderer, are we going to go automatic, so it chooses the best method? Are we going to stick with software, stick with hardware, go for NVIDIA Grid GPU, or have it disabled? So we just go automatic. That then allows us to configure VRAM between 64 meg and 512 meg. We can choose the number of monitors, and we can also choose the maximum resolution from standard HD all the way up to 4K. Do we want to allow them to access this desktop from the web browser? So it's a simple click yes to enable it, but don't forget you need to also have installed the HTML access portion on the connection servers. And then session collaboration, enabled or disabled. Note there it says requires VMware BLAST protocol. But if we change this to PC over IP, it still allows us to check that box, but obviously it won't work because it requires BLAST. Then we have Adobe Flash settings for sessions, so we can control the flash quality, low, medium or high. Bear in mind, bandwidth will come into play here and how much you have depending on the quality, and the same for throttling. Do we want to conservatively throttle the flash moderately or aggressively? Again, check your network is capable of this. Then finally, there is a setting for Mirage, only really relevant if you have deployed Mirage. Mirage is now end of life, but this could then override some of the settings. If you're happy with those, click Next to continue. And now we need to add the vCenter virtual machine. So we need to select which particular machine is going to be in this pool, or machines. So here we see our virtual machine. So it's going to go to vCenter and find out which ones are virtual machines, not templates, not snapshots, proper virtual machines. So here we have one called Windows 7 Manual Desktop, specifically for this task. So we select that, we click Add. That adds that machine into the pool and selects it, and then we can go Next to continue. Now we have advanced storage options. Do we want to use the View Storage Accelerator? So that basically is the content-based read cache, so it will cache commonly read blocks on the operating system. And if we click that, that allows us when do we want to regenerate the cache, so after 7 days in this case. We also have blackout times, so if that's switched on we can add blackout times. Blackout times are when not to do things like cache regeneration because it will have an impact on storage performance. So we probably would say if we add a blackout time scope, say don't run on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday between 8 and I don't know whichever time, 8 and 10. So don't run at those times because people are working, but you're quite happy to do that on a Saturday or a Sunday. Then finally we have transparent page sharings. So this allows the ability, because obviously a desktop operating system on multiple instances will be sharing a huge number of pages. So using the VMware transparent page sharing facility, how are you going to manage that memory? Are we going to do it on just the virtual machine? Are we going to share pages across the entire desktop pool, the pod, or across the whole environment? So we're not going to select those, but those are the options you have. So click Next to continue, and then we see the summary screen. So we can see that we're creating a manual desktop pool, dedicated assignment, virtual center machine, it's got that ID, and so on and so forth. So check your settings. If you're happy with the settings, you can click Finish, and then the desktop pool gets created. We then return back to the Horizon 7 administrator screen, where we can see our Windows 7 manual desktop pool has been created. So we can double click on there and we can see that all the settings. We can also see what that warning message was. As we said earlier, that's because we haven't actually entitled anybody to any of the pools. So now we've successfully created our manual desktop pool. In the next video, we're going to start to entitle the end users to the newly created desktop pools so that they can start to connect to the virtual desktop machines within them.